Akutavach, this is Gemara and Yoma Daf Chof Aleph. All the learning for this month, the month of Iyar, is sponsored as a Chos Refuah Shlema for Rivka Bas Basheva, as well as Chos Refuah Shlema for Tolis Fim Michal Esther. These two Chaylim should have a tremendous refuah on this Chos of learning of the entire Chabura. As well as the week concludes, we like to sponsor today's shir as a schus for Shlema for Sarah Bas Kila Mirta Hashem. She should come out of the hospital very, very soon. Finally, we like to dedicate tonight's shir as a special schus for Shlema, schus Ilin Neshama, schus Nechama for all the chaylim, all the families that are going through very difficult times of the events of the past week. And finally, our chaylim and veveg chayim as Hashem Zim Reizos Arvas Kenendli Vasim as Chaysar Yisrael Minder as Vindish Avlei Shamas Na'abiv Shaveg Shulchana Shmom Tia Dim Khan Reizos Chay Vasim Lebrachos Tavim Musa Dinei Vashin Mindol Simchatavim and Vegay Fesham Sivan and Fegel Dvern Michal Zun Nazel Huba Menachamendel Ben Toba V'Soy Sharchali Yisrael as well as Chashilach Fatalei Abbas Ita. We pick it up in the very top of Chof Aleph Amid Aleph, the final daf in this first parak of Mesechtes Yoma. Says the Gemara, we concluded with the words of the Gemara that Tiodas V'Yishaymim Af Radia, that even the Radia, the plowers, make this incredible sound, and we're sort of actually in the middle of a statement. We'll explain in a moment. The Chazal David that we spoke about at the bottom of Amud Beis, all the difficult sounds that are these very loud sounds of people in the Roman marketplace, these different Kehanim that had these incredible sounds, and one of the last ones were the sound of the neshama leaving the body. Says the Gemara that Chazal davened for that, and he left, and we no longer know of such a thing, of course. Says the Gemara, Tanya Kavase, to Rav Shila. We have a right to Rav Shila. Again, let's just remind ourselves, we discussed at the end how we got into the discussion, is what is the Gever? We had a two-way machlokes whether the Gever was the rooster, or whether the Gever was one of the Kohanim that announced what time it was. So says the Gemara, I have a riot of Shila that Gever means the rooster. Hayoytz l'darech, says the Gemara, Kodim Kriyas HaGever. Someone goes on the road before the calling of the Gever. The blood is on his head. Obviously, he's not calling about the Kayin over here. So by the time that the rooster makes noise in the morning, and Rabbi Yishaya Omer, Yeshta, until the rooster crows 2 times, and V'yishayim Yashlish, until it crows 3 times. A medium-sized roosters. That's a riot to Rav Shila. The word Gever is not referring to the Kayin, but rather to the rooster. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Shashi Yisrael. Oilin the regal at a time the Klal Yisrael. Roy the regal during the Shalosh Regalim, of course. Oim dim sfufin, they would stand cramped, they would stand crowded. But by mishtachavim revachim, when they wanted to bow, they had all the space in the world. Not all the space, actually dalet amos for each person. And they spread out into the 11 amos behind the Kabbayres. Micah Amar says, even though there were so many people, they filled up everywhere, and they even went behind the Kabbayres. We'll see a picture in a moment. And they were crowded. There was no room. They were spreading everywhere. Yet, the wonderful miracle, how time appropriate, we need such a miracle. They would bow down, and they would have all the room. One of the 10 miracles that was in the Beis HaMikdash. A quick picture over here. Here you see, this is the Achayrei Beis HaMikdash, the 11 Amos. Also now we could also fix a mistake I believe I made the other day. When we read the Gemara a few daf ago, I said that the 11 Amos was the Kodesh HaKadoshim. As you see clearly here, it's not. It's 11 Amos behind the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Over here, the picture does flip. Don't get dizzy. Over here, this is, as you see, the great areas where all the Klal Yisrael were standing. So even though they were so packed, every inch was filled, yet when they bowed, they had Dalet Amos. Dalet Amos, they could say Vidoy, no one hurt each other. Dalet Amos, they could daven, but the incredible miracle of being incredibly packed and having the room to bow when necessary. Says the Gemara, so we just started the 10 miracles that happened in the Beis HaMikdash. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Asara and Nisa Nas Beis HaMikdash, there were 10 miracles. Number 1, a woman never miscarried from the smell of the meat of karbanis, and the meat never got spoiled. Me'olam, forever. And there were no flies in the slaughterhouse of the Beis Hamikdash. And the Kohen Gadol never had carry in Yom Kippur, which is of course a question back from Daf Beis. We know that one of the reasons the Kohen Gadol separated for 7 days, so we didn't have Gary, but this is one of the miracles. Different Pshatim, obviously the easiest teretz is in Seimich Alaneis, we still have to do our Ishtadlos. They never found the psal in the carbon Aimer, B'shtei Lechem, carbon on Shavuos, Ublechem upon him. Oim dim Sfufim, they would stand crowded, packed, B'shtachavim Arachim. V'loi Hizik Nachash V'akriv Yishlayim, and a Nachash, a Nakriv, a snake, and a scorpion, never harmed anyone in Yishlayim, Me'olam, forever. V'loi Amar Adam L'chaveirai, Sarli Amakayim, and no one ever said, this place is so tight, Sha'alan B'Yerushalayim, that I have to, when I stay overnight in Yerushalayim. Obviously, everyone on their own is wondering the Gemara's next question. We started off the 10 miracles in the Beis HaMikdash, and we concluded with Yerushalayim. Ask the Gemara, what's going on over here? Says the Gemara, you're right. Really, there were 2 more replacing the final 2. And let's just say one word, the final one was, even though all of Klal let us stay overnight, imagine the cramped quarters, still no one complained. Not only, meaning it's one thing to not complain when they're in the Beis HaMikdash, but even sleeping overnight, no one complained. Says the Gemara, so we have 2 other ones that we can emplace instead of the ones in the Yerushalayim. And these were in the Beis HaMikdash. Number 1, the rain never put out the food on top of the, not the food, the fire, on top of the Marach, on top of the Mizbeach, and the smoke on the Mizbeach, even all the winds of the world come and blow, and yet what says the Gemara in the first wide line, never moves from its place. Of course, we know the beautiful picture, which we'll see as we go further. Of course, we know the fire, the cloud of smoke that went directly down on top of the Mizbeach, that stayed there and never wavered to and fro, and therefore says the Gemara, these last 2 replace the 2 that the Gemara said about Yerushalayim, and now we're back to the 10 miracles in the Beis HaMikdash. Says the Gemara, really? There are only 10? Were there not more in the first wide line? Vatanya, Rav Shemaya Bikal Navoi, Shivrei Kli Cheres Nivlan B'Makaymoin. Says Rav Shemaya, all the Shivrei Kli Cheres, if ever there were Kli Cheres, the halacha was they had to break them. We know earthenware vessels absorb taste and no way to kasher them. Same thing with kachim, they had to break them. What happened when they broke them? It got sucked into the ground of the Beis HaMikdash. That's a cool one. Similarly, the different types of the from the bird, Ayla, the Mayra, the crab, and the nights of the feathers, and as well all the ashes they removed, they will put them in a special place, and again the ground would suck them up. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. You told me there's only 10. We see more. Answers the Gemara, Psule Tlasa Have. In truth, in the Mishnah there were 3 different nisim that take the place of those of the that were psulim. What does that mean? That refers to the carbon Aimer, says Rashi, the shtei alechem and the lechem upon him. Those 3 take the place with these 2. 1 second. Those 3 take the place with these 2. So now we have 9. Says the Gemara, chashvinu b'chad. Okay, so count them as 1. Apik tray, and therefore you could subtract 2, and now we have vial tray, and you could bring in 2. Again, the 3 that we just wanted to get rid of is called 1. That's 1. Take away another 1. Now we can bring in 2 more, says the Gemara. Wait, Yachi, blue and nami. Says the Gemara, blue and nami trei avai. There are also 2 which were 1. Chashvinu bechad, chasulu. Now we're lacking. Meaning, if you're telling me that miracles were very similar, almost the same, they count as 1. So the Beis HaMikdash floor swallowing up all these different items should also count at 1. Answers the Gemara, Ikernami Achriti, there is another one, Rav Shimon Levi, when they remove it, it would be as fresh, piping hot, like when they put it there, even though it was a week later. Shenamar, the Pasuk teaches us that the heat is there, like the heat the day it was put there. Which, of course, some of the Mefarshim here wonder, how do you see? Actually, no, let's not speak to that. Yeah, we'll speak to that in one more moment. Says the Gemara, Einai. V'suleka, were there no other miracles? V'amar Rav Levi, famous one. The Aron HaKodesh, the Aron in the base of Mikdash, and the Kodesh HaKodashim took up no space. V'amar Rav Noi, Amar Shmuel, Keruvim and Ace Aimdim. The Keruvim there with an ace, as you see over here. See over here in this picture, this is the whole Kodesh HaKodashim was 20 by 20, and the Psukim teach us that there were 10 Amos in either side. So if I have 10 and 10, and it's 20, I have no space in the middle. So the Aron itself was Einai Min Amid that didn't actually take up space. Answers the Gemara, so why didn't we count that? 2 lines of the 3 lines. Nisan Devrai Kachashiv, Nisan Gavai Lo Kachashiv. We only counted miracles that were outside the base of Mikdash, not miracles that were inside that no one saw the Kodesh HaKodashim. 1 second. The Lechem Apanim was also inside and everyone didn't see it. Answers the Gemara, Lechem HaPanim needs Debrayu. No, really Lechem HaPanim was an outside miracle. How is it an outside miracle? Lechem HaPanim was in the base of Mikdash. Damar Reish Lakish, Ma'idach Sabot, meaning of the Pasik, Al Shulchan Atar, on the Shulchan Atar, the Lechem HaPanim replaced on the Tar, on the pure table. Tar, what does that teach us? Mechlal Shu Tameh. That teaches us that it's able to become Tameh, it's able to be Makabel Tama. Moving along to Amid Beis, says the Gemara, Kli Eitz, 1 minute, how is it able to become Tameh? The Shulchan was made out of wood. Ha'asoi Lenachasu, it was made out of wood, which was meant to stay stationary. Number 1, as soon as something is stationary and it's made out of wood, the gold is batal, says Rashi. Halachas is not mekabel tama, and furthermore, it's bnei tama, black's tama. So what does the pasuk mean that it's on the Shulchan Atar, which was tar? Why is it just tar? Tar usually means that it's able to be kabel tama, but we see that's not true. They picked up the Shulchan. La'idli regalim when they would come by the regel. Va'imrim lahem. Re'uchi batzlem lefnei hamakom. Look how much God loves you. Shazi look like Yisidurai. Look at these breads. They're piping hot. Look at the wonderful nisim miracles that Hashem does for us. Remember the pasuk says, "L'sum lechem chaim b'yayim halachai." Says the Gemara. That's why we counted it. We'll just point out a question which Mefarshim here deal with. I don't understand. They picked up lechem hapanim. They picked up the Shulchan. Everyone sees piping hot bread. How do you see piping hot bread? Piping hot bread, you feel, maybe smell. How do you see it? It doesn't look any different. So some of the Mefarshim say, no, there was steam coming out of it. Asks other Mefarshim, what do you mean? There's no steam when you take out the fresh chalas for Erev Shabbos. There's no steam on them. Maybe when you cut it open, sometimes there's steam. So what did this mean? So some said, no, that was part of the miracle, almost like in the pictures, that it had steam rising, some visible steam, just to show how much Hashem loves us. Says the Gemara, continuing, V'su lakam, were there no other miracles? Amar Rabbi Yeshua. When Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash, you know what he did? He planted all types of fruit trees of gold, golden fruit trees. And they would grow fruit at the right time as if they were real fruit. When the wind would blow, the fruits would fall off these miraculous golden fruits, as the pasuk says that many of its fruits rustle like that of like years Kalavanim, like Lebanon, like Lebanon. And when the Goyim entered in to destroy the Beis HaMikdash, Yavish, the trees dried up. And God's going to return it back to us. Can't wait to see this one. As the pasuk says, it's going to blossom abundantly. And we're going to rejoice. And we're going to sing for the honor of the Lebanon Nasan that is given to her. Nitan law that is given to her. Says the Gemara, that's quite a fabulous miracle. Why isn't this one counted? Answers the Gemara, miracles that were fixed, like the trees which were there all the time, we don't count those miracles. Says the Gemara, 1 second. The Aron wasn't going anywhere, so it's also a sad miracle. Answers the Gemara, in the second white line, and so too, the smoke of the maracha. The smoke of the maracha. Meaning, says the Gemara, I'll give you more items that you should list. What about the smoke of the maracha that was umi have I'm sorry. Let me say that one more time. The Gemara just answered that it's pretty schwer to say Nisa de Kavi set Nisim because at the end of the day, why didn't we count? We counted Aron and the Kruvim. The Gemara just sort of doesn't go and answer the question. It goes to another question. Omar Mar. One of the miracles that we listed was the Ashan HaMaracha, the smoke. Asks the Gemara, 1 second. Miyavi Ashan HaMaracha. Was there really smoke? Vatani, we learned in the Brayz Chavish Varim Nemru Beish HaMaracha. We learned 5 things about the fire of the Maracha. Number 1, Revuta Kari, crouched like a lion, whatever that means. Ubarak Kechama, and it was clear like the sun, Vishvay Mamish, and it had substance, which is not like regular smoke, V'ocheles Lachin, and it consumed moist items, Kiyavation, like like dry ones. Veina Maila Asher, and there was no smoke. There's no smoke. What are you telling me that there was smoke? Ki Kaminan Behedyot. We're talking about the fire of a Hedyot. Of course, there was a fire that came down from God. Then there was additional fire that was added on by people, says the Gemara. That's the one that could potentially produce smoke. The Tanya is learned to the Brayz of an Osmani Aaron HaKoyin Ishal Mezbeach. Afal Pishi Sheredis Min HaShamayim. Still, mitzvah Lavim Min HaHedi is still a mitzvah to bring fire, and that's the fire that doesn't waver. Says the Gemara, 1 second. What else did you teach me? Revuta Kari, crouched like a lion. Vatani Rav Chlin is kind of Kohanim and Irisi, Revuta Kekelef. It's crouching like a dog. Like Hasha says the Gemara about the fire, Kam b'mikdash rishon, Kam b'mikdash sheni. 1 second, b'mikdash sheni mi'avoy. What's going on over here? Was it really a fire from heaven, the mikdash sheni? Hamar Rav Shmuel bar Yinina. We have to make a list of all the different things based on mikdash sheni. Says the Gemara, Ma'idich Sev, what's the meaning of the pasuk? Says the pasuk, I'm going to be pleased and I'll be honored. And we read it with a hey at the end. My shenad mechusar hey. Why is it written without a hey? Ella. I'm sorry. Elu chamisha dvarim shabis mikdash rishon the mikdash sheni. The lacking, missing hey teaches there were 5 items, which we've seen already. Some of them that were not in the second piece. Mikdash v'elohein aroin v'kabayres kruvim eish u'shchina v'ruach hakodesh. I'm sorry. Number 5 is v'urim aturim. Says the Gemara. So there wasn't any eish in the second base of mikdash. So how can you tell me that's the fire? Amri. So they answered in Havi. No, really, there was a fire from heaven. So you Allah misaye. However, the fire didn't help actually consume the items on the mizbeach. An interesting phenomena that there was a fire there that came down from heaven, but that fire did not actually consume all the korbanos. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan Shisha Ishaysein. There were 6 types of fire. There's a fire that consumes, it doesn't drink. Whatever that means. It drinks but doesn't eat. It does both. It eats the moist like the dry. There's a fire that can push away the fire. There's a fire that consumes the fire. Says the Gemara, let's go through all 6 of these. The fire that eats but doesn't drink. Hadidan. That's referring to our fires. Our fires could eat foods, solids, but a fire, of course, does not consume liquids. Liquids put out fires. What's a fire that drinks but doesn't eat? The chulin. That's referring to I got it right the first time. The chulin, the fire of someone who's very, very sick. What does that mean? It means it makes it very thirsty when you're burning up the fever, but you're not hungry, so it's a fire that consumes liquids and not solids. What's referred to is says we have a fire that eats and drinks Eliyahu. That's the fire of Eliyahu. And Navi Dechsev, as the pasuk says, "Zamayim asher bis Allah, Zamayim asher bat Allah licheicha," and it licked up the water in the trench. So this was a special fire of Eliyahu and Navi that had the ability not only to consume solids but even liquids. The fire that consumed wet like dry, like we just said, was the fire on the mizbeach. Yesh eish decha. What's that referred to? That's the fire of Gabriel. That's the fire dish that it pushes away fire. The Omar Mar, as we learned, He extended his finger amongst them, Visarfan, and he consumed them. Referring to the fire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the fire of Hashem during the 6 days that the world was created. There was the Malachim, explains Rashi. Malachim said, "What are you creating the world for?" Hashem pushed them away, so it was Eish. The Malachim are Eish, and it's pushed away by Eish. Finishing up the parak, says the Gemara of Ashram Aracha, Afilu Kol Aruchash Va'ilam, the fire, the smoke, I should say, on the pyre, on the top of the mizbeach, even all the winds of the world, it will not force it to move from its place. In the final day of Yantiv, everyone would gaze as the column of smoke from the mizbeach, and they would see this column of smoke. Where's it moving? If it's moving northward, then Aniyim would be happy, because that means that the crops are going to be very cheap, because there'll be an abundance. A lot of rain, and therefore the produce is going to rot, meaning you have to sell it at a cheap price. Not the klape daraim. If this column of smoke in the mizbeach is going southward, aniyim atzevin and balabates mechel aniyim are going to be very sad. The crops are going to be very expensive. They're going to save the fruit and charge a premium. Not the klape mizrach. If the fire went eastward, akol tzmechim klape ma'iriv akol atzavim. Everyone said. So ask the Gemara. I don't understand. You just told me that the nace was that the column of smoke stayed stationary. But we see clearly in a brisa, depending which way it moved, showed different signs. Obviously it moved. Answers the Gemara, the azal va'asi kidikla va'avduri. It went back and forth like a palm tree, v'ibadure lo yahave, but it did not actually Mibadar, did not actually disperse, meaning it sort of like swayed in that direction and came back. Swayed in the other direction or it came back, and that's how it knows which direction is foreshadowing the different rains, but it still was the miracle that always came back to the center. Says the Gemara, Vasi Kedikli Vavduri Lav Mibdadar. Omar Mar, finishing up this wonderful first parak of Yoma. Klabe Mizracha Kol Zmechem, Klabe Ma'irva Kol Atzai, Verminu. Mizracha is Lailam Yafa, Marav is Lailam Kasha. There's a different brisa, and the brisa says, depending on which way the wind blows, shows us whether people are going to be happy. And it's bad for the olives, when they're in the very premature state. Says the Brisa, Ruach Daim is kasha lechitin, is bad for lechitin, v'shashavi yishlesh, v'yafal is eizvan she'in b'chatin. So says the Gemara, I don't understand what's going on over here. We have a clear Brisa that contradicts what we just said. V'amar Rav Yosef v'dema mar zutra, v'simanech sholcham ba'atzaf, v'minayr ba'darain. That you remember which way is good. So says the Gemara, I don't understand. It's the exact opposite of what we saw, depending on which direction is good for you. Answers the Gemara, like Asha, hi mar b'didei. Says the Gemara, this is part of the Kash of Simonich. This one is for its own, this one's for its own, referring to the fact that the Menorah and the Mizbeach will depict whether it's blowing towards their side. So says the Gemara, we have a Sira answers the Gemara, again, one is referring to those living in Bavel, and one is referring to those living in Eretz Yisrael. As you see in the final Rashi, Halan Valum Mizrachas Yavel Eretz, it's good for Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Bavel, She Eretz Lecha, the Eretz Bavel is very, very moist. Machmas Mimeha La'ilam. Ul Eretz Yisrael is the opposite. Kashish Eretz Ha'arim Ubekais Maharim Liavesh. So it's the opposite. Hajan Alach Shivas Hayamim. We must do a fabulous chazar on this first parak, starting to get into the inyanim of the Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippur, and we should do and learn many, many more prakim together.